Hey guys, thanks for joining us for the October newsletter. I have to apologize in advance. If you remember last year's October newsletter, we went way overboard with all of the costume changes, so this year we're just looking lazy. But we still have good information for you. So this month we're discussing cargo theft, changes to the FMCSA's DataQ system, we have more on new OSHA initiatives related to silica exposure, and more. All right, let's get spooky. Did you know that violation challenges are the #1 reason an owner-operator is using the FMCSA DataQ system? Also, did you know that only 39% of those challenges are successfully changed? Also, did you know that makes it the least successful challenge category in the DataQ system? Well, it's true. And now, the FMCSA is proposing a fix to the appeals process, which will entail developing and implementing a federal appeals process for RDRs, or requests for data review, that are submitted to the agency through its DataQ system. Don't worry, this is a good thing and it will work in the carrier's favor. Let's back up for a second though and talk about the DataQ system. The DataQ system is an electronic system that allows a carrier to file a challenge against violations, roadside inspection reports, DOT recordable crash reports, or the results of any investigation that they are involved in. The problem they are trying to solve with it is the fact that most DataQ appeals are decided by the same state law enforcement agency that initially wrote the violation. This could be the reason why most of the challenge violations are not corrected. If you have questions or concerns at any time about the DataQ process, or if you have a violation to challenge, you can always contact us at info@cnsprotects.com or just fill out the form below. The good news here is that if you notice incorrect information in your PSP report or the CSA safety measurement system, you can fight and remove these records that may be keeping your scores or your insurance rates high. Part of this proposed appeals process will entail the FMCSA working with state law enforcement partners and local FMCSA offices to ensure that RDR reconsideration requests are reviewed by someone other than the person who conducted the initial RDR review. Okay, so the FMCSA is currently accepting comments on the proposal. They are asking the public for feedback on 6 main questions relating to RDR reviews and/or RDR reconsiderations. Number 1, should the FMCSA appeals be considered for RDRs unrelated to the understanding of regulations? 2, if you answered yes to number 1, what are some examples of RDRs that should be reviewed in an appeal? Number 3, some states and program offices have review boards and panels to manage requests or referrals that happen during the RDR review, so they want to know how the addition of the FMCSA appeal would impact these review boards and their processes. Number 4, they would like to know thoughts on the types of burdens states might face with updating their source data if they're notified of an FMCSA appeal result that requires a data change. Number 5, the FMCSA appeals may identify certain instances where this clarity could be helpful for future RDR reviews. Do you have any recommended practices for distributing appeal outcomes? And number 6, are there any factors that the FMCSA should consider relating to its proposed requirement for a separate reviewer in RDR reconsiderations? If you have any questions or concerns about where you stand with your CSA scores, insurance, or have questions about the DataQ process, just fill out the form below or give CNS a call at 888-260-9448 and one of our DOT compliance specialists will help you out. Well, the FMCSA is trying to backtrack again.
Point and laugh.
First, it was a 68-mile-an-hour speed limiter. Now they want California and Washington to not follow the federal rules? Typical. You're probably wondering what I'm talking about. Well, the federal hours of service rules require that a driver take a 30-minute break after 8 hours of driving time. But California and Washington have even tighter labor rules which require a 30-minute meal break after just 5 hours of work. Just so you know, if you have questions at any time, you can contact us at info@cnsprotects.com or just fill out the form below. Now, the reason the FMCSA was able to override the state rules is because under the Motor Carrier Safety Act of 1984, states are prohibited from enforcing a law or regulation on commercial motor vehicle safety that the Transportation Secretary has determined to be preempted by existing federal rules. Then, in the great years of 2018 and 2020, the FMCSA ruled in favor of the FMCSA, stating that California and Washington's meal and rest break rules, when applied to regulated drivers, preempted the federal rules. This allowed the Secretary of Transportation to prohibit the states from enforcing the meal laws within the federal motor carrier safety regime. Now, in the meek year of 2023 and an election year right around the corner, the FMCSA said, enough is enough. Someone at the FMCSA had a dream that one day, that day being now, that one day all companies in this great nation will submit a waiver to follow the state's rules. And if those companies choose not to submit that waiver, they will follow federal rules. Now, I have a question. Well, sorry about that. Got caught up in the moment. My question is, why wouldn't these companies just tell their drivers to take a break after 5 hours? You get the same benefits of a happy worker, resting and eating, without risking a violation or ticket if you submit that waiver and are then regulated by that rule officially. Either way you decide to go, we are always here to answer your questions and offer the best advice. Just fill out the form below or give CNS a call at 888-260-9448 and one of our DOT compliance specialists will help you out. Pennsylvania is just one of 14 states that still requires annual vehicle inspections. But there is a package of bills being proposed by State Senator Marty Flynn that would abolish them altogether. Marty Flynn sits on the Senate Transportation Committee, and in September of 2023, he circulated a bill to eliminate annual vehicle inspections and also proposed several other changes in a driving PA forward package. In addition to the abolishing of annual vehicle inspections, he proposed digital driver's license and license plates, implementing vehicle sales on Sundays, and improving the driver education law. Regardless of these possible changes, vehicle emissions testing is still a federal requirement and would remain unchanged for right now. If you have questions or concerns at any time about vehicle inspections and the requirements, you can contact us at info@cnsprotects.com or you can just fill out the form below. Now, Senator Flynn had multiple reasons for his proposed changes, including the value of the annual inspections being hard to quantify, as well as the impact of those inspections on reducing crash rates being even harder to predict. Basically, he is saying that these yearly vehicle safety inspection requirements do not equal safer roads. Another issue is that the state's motor license fund sees no revenue from inspections and the only money going to PennDOT comes from the cost of windshield stickers. To help the motor license fund, the bill would implement new consumer protections to make sure that vehicles are roadworthy before they are sold. While the burden and cost of the annual vehicle inspections would go away, the bill would increase annual vehicle registrations by $15, generating $120 million annually for the motor license fund. And even with the increase in registration, vehicle owners should still be saving money in the end. Now, we mentioned a couple before, but the other licensing items that the bills would affect include Sunday vehicle sales, digital driver's licenses and license plates, and requiring annual mileage data for vehicles with antique or classic registrations, with those owners also being required to register an everyday driving vehicle. Here at CNS, we've been handling our clients' licensing and permitting needs for over 30 years. We're handling them for local residents who have personal vehicles, as well as local commercial motor carriers. From IRP licensing to IFTA licensing to title management, we do it all. All commercial motor carriers that operate qualified motor vehicles must register in the IRP program to pay their registration fees. Many carriers also need to manage their vehicle titles and IFTA licensing. If you have any questions about this, just fill out the form below or give CNS a call at 888-260-9448 and one of our DOT compliance specialists will help you out. Okay, this one probably sounds familiar. We've all been there, caught red-handed smoking the pack of cowboy killers in the high school bathroom that you stole from your dad's sock drawer. But you forgot that Mr. Delosio doesn't have class during second period and wanders the halls. One whiff of that Marlboro, man, and bam, your cigarettes are confiscated and you got detention. No biggie, you did your time like a man, and at 4 p.m., you were free to head over to the special gas station that doesn't discriminate against age when it comes to selling cigarettes or alcohol. But you aren't in high school anymore, and Mr. Delosio passed away from lung cancer long ago. Apparently he was smoking all those cigarettes that he confiscated. So why am I going on and on about Mr. Delosio's cigarettes and detention? Well, as most CDL drivers know, you're still getting put in detention. It's just not Mr. Delosio that's doing it. It isn't because of cigarettes. And instead of having an hour or two to relax with your thoughts, you're losing money and a lot of it. All right, let's reel it back quick. There is currently no standard definition for detention time. The industry typically considers the amount of time spent at a facility exceeding 2 hours to be considered detention time. And finally, we're getting to the point here. The FMCSA wants to do a study on its impact by collecting detention time data from CMV drivers, analyzing the frequency and severity of the time, and assessing how effective existing intelligent transportation systems can measure that time. If you have questions or concerns at any time about detention times, you can contact us at info@cnsprotects.com or just fill out the form below. Now, some of you seasoned truckers out there are probably saying, hey, Texas Matt, didn't the FMCSA do a study on the impact of detention times on CMV safety back in 2014? Well, yes, you are right, but that study had certain limitations such as small sample sizes of mostly large carriers, the inability to identify time spent loading and unloading, data that did not cover a 12-month period, and more. To combat the sample size issue, in this study, the FMCSA is using around 80 carriers and 2,500 drivers, which should provide enough data for the study. Hopefully, with the new sample size, the FMCSA will get more industry-accurate representations of this detention time issue. And hopefully it provides better data for them to work with, because back in 2021, drivers were rating dwell time as their second highest concern. Why? Well, there are several reasons. One, the average dwell time at facilities for all fleets was 1 hour and 54 minutes per stop. Two, refrigerated carriers had an average dwell time of 3 hours and 16 minutes due to the commodities that they haul, which led to longer waits at shipper and receiver facilities. And three, fleets with 25 trucks or less were victims of the highest dwell times at 2 hours and 23 minutes per stop. And of course, outside of the money, this goes back to what we always say. What was that? Yeah, that's right, safety. If a driver is able to map out when they'll pick up cargo, drop it off, and leave, they'll be less likely to operate beyond the hours of service limits, less likely to speed, and so on. And that's what it's all about with the FMCSA and the whole reason behind the study. Do longer dwell times actually have an impact on road safety? So after the drivers agree to participate, carriers will collect and provide 1 year of data, and then the study will analyze the relationships between detention time and characteristics of carriers such as facility locations and the details of driver schedules. If you have any questions or concerns about detention times, what they are, or where they are going, just fill out the form below or give us a call at 888-260-9448 and a DOT compliance specialist will help you out. It's not uncommon to see theft in larger cities, but when you think about theft, you're probably thinking of a purse, a stolen phone, or maybe someone stole your Marlboro Rye while you were walking around in New York City.
Stop it!
I want that ride, lady.
Help! Someone help!
Shut up, you old pig.
Hey, it could happen. Well, in the trucking world, and just so you know, that's a Seinfeld reference. Well, in the trucking world, it can be much worse because they are dealing with cargo theft, which is the highest it has ever been. In the US and Canada, there has been a 57% increase in reported incidents since last year. So why am I telling you about it? Well, currently the Philadelphia Police Department has been investigating an active cargo theft ring in the Philadelphia area since October of 2022. This could happen anywhere and to anyone. Some of these victims have been driving for over 20 years and never heard of anything like this. There were a couple of incidents recently in the Philly area that are worth mentioning. The first one involves more than 3 dozen TVs being stolen out of a tractor trailer. Collectively, those TVs were worth over $11,000. And all of this happened while the driver was sleeping inside the truck. It happened around 1 a.m. The driver was from Texas and said that he was sleeping and he kept feeling something moving. As he woke up, he saw 2 pickup trucks driving off with all the TVs. The second one was a much stranger, but also much more expensive load. A carrier had a load of dimes that was worth around $750,000. Yeah, you heard me right, dimes, as in coins. A trucker was transporting the load of dimes to Florida. He left the truck unattended in a Walmart parking lot, and a large portion of the dimes were stolen. The portion that was stolen was worth around $200,000. Now, I don't know about you, but right now, I'm wondering how those thieves plan to cash or spend that money. I only see one of 2 ways that they could do that. Option 1, pay for everything in dimes everywhere you go. This is not ideal. Have you ever been in line behind those people at the store? Yeah, they suck. If the thief goes with option 1, the people in line are bound to start a riot. Then, someone in line puts 2 and 2 together and yells out, "He's the dime thief!" You run, a one-armed security guard tackles you, you end up going to jail. How embarrassing, right? Option 2, take those 2 million dimes and throw them into the Coinstar at Walmart. Also a bad choice. You don't want to return to the scene of a crime, and if you try to dump 2 million dimes into a Coinstar, they're bound to have to call the manager over, and we all know how helpful they are, right? Standing there while the manager figures out a solution, you become so frustrated that you admit to the crime and turn yourself in. It's a lose-lose situation. When talking about insurance coverage, you need to make sure you are covered for theft of cargo and make sure that your current coverage limits cover the value of your load. If you have questions, you can contact us at info@cnsinsures.com or just fill out the form in the description below. So there are 3 main locations that have been hit, and the police have even gotten to the point of asking carriers to report information they have, especially if they are robbed at any of these 3 locations. They have asked that any reports be sent to police.oper, that underscore thingy, Ned, isn't Ned spelled with 1D at phila. Yeah, whatever, we'll throw that up on the screen. Also, you should include contact information, the police report number, and use the subject heading Cargo Theft Group. To protect yourself and your equipment, you can do things like planning your routes, finding safe and even gated parking, and make sure you secure trailers with high security barrier seals and hardened padlocks. Also, try not to leave your truck unattended, but if you do, make sure you lock the doors, take the keys, and activate any alarm systems. Now, if your cargo was stolen or if you're witnessing it being stolen, call the authorities right away. Don't intervene and try stopping them. Make sure you provide a detailed report of the incident, notify your employer, and file an insurance report. If you have any questions about your insurance coverages or would like to shop your insurance, just fill out the form below or give CNS Insurance a call at 1-800-724-5523 and one of our commercial insurance specialists will help you out. Well, OSHA is at it again. They are really ramping up and pushing more and more initiatives lately. And they're even more focused on silica exposure. Why? Well, because they have seen a huge increase in workers being diagnosed with silicosis caused by occupational exposure to crystalline silica. A recent study cited 52 male patients diagnosed with silicosis that was verified to be caused by silica dust from engineered stone. Of these 52 patients, 20 suffered progressive massive fibrosis, 11 needed lung transplants, and 10 died because of their exposures. In 2018, there were over 8,500 establishments and over 95,000 employees in the stone fabrication industry in the US. Now, what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that even 5 years ago, there were a high number of employees being exposed to silica dust. If you have questions, just email us at info@cnsocmed.com or just fill out the form below and a CNS occupational healthcare specialist will help you out. Now, even though OSHA does have some rules in place for these types of organizations, they're really trying to crack down and protect these workers even more. The new initiative that OSHA just announced is focusing on 2 major things. First will be enforcement efforts, which will make sure employers are following the required guidelines to protect employees. And second, establishing procedures to prioritize federal OSHA inspections of these organizations where exposure is high. All of this is in addition to OSHA's current national emphasis program for respirable crystalline silica. We'll add a link above for that video. We have discussed this before, but crystalline silica is a very serious health issue and is usually found in sand, concrete, natural stone, artificial stone, mortar, and other materials. When cutting, grinding, and polishing these materials, a very fine dust that can be 100 times smaller than a grain of sand gets released into the air. If workers do not have protection, they're inhaling this dust into their lungs throughout an entire shift. It can lead to silicosis, which can disable a person or even lead to death, and it can also lead to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or kidney disease. If you or your company think you fall under this initiative, or if you have questions, you can just fill out the form below or email us at info@cnsocmed.com or call us at 1-800-551-9816 and an occupational healthcare specialist will help you out. Well, that's it for this month. I hope you learned something. If you ever have questions, give us a shout and we'll be happy to help. We'll see you young bucks in Movember.